CGH, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, my sister CS Defense, Soipan Tuya, Chairperson NSC, Kiprono Kitoni, CEO Liaison Group, Tom Mulwa, other distinguished players in the capital market space, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocols observed. Good morning. It gives me great pleasure to join the capital markets fraternity this morning as we celebrate a significant milestone, the listing of the first infrastructure asset-backed security on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Your Excellency, today's bell-ringing ceremony is a clear reflection of the growing strength and maturity of our capital markets, which are increasingly positioned to support diverse financial needs across both public and private sectors. Your Excellency, the government which you lead is increasingly turning to innovative financing mechanisms to fund large-scale infrastructure and public service projects. As the financial needs of the government continue to outpace available public resources, private sector participation has become a critical tool in addressing infrastructure gaps, enhancing service delivery, and promoting sustainable development. Some of the structures that we have earmarked for the deployment of private sector participation in public financing include asset-backed financing, otherwise known as securitization of public assets. 2 is privatization, and 3 is public-private partnerships, among others. So let me turn shortly and briefly to the state corporation reforms. Your Excellency, as directed, we are carrying out an economy-wide and state corporation sector-specific reforms and corporation-specific restructurings as an end in itself, and also in response to policy and business dynamics. The dynamics include the following. 1, the coming of age of the private sector that can deliver commercial activities more efficiently, hence part of the need for privatization of government-owned enterprises. And therefore, the need to elevate the role of government to one of policy and regulation to support commercial activities of the private sector, to avoid conflict at the commercial operations level. Privatization plan. Your Excellency, privatization of government-owned enterprises is a component of the wider economic reforms in favor of economic liberalization. And today, you have called it democratizing the wealth. Privatization of government-owned enterprises ushers in the private sector to take over the commercial activities that government-owned enterprises are undertaking. This is necessary because the private sector carries out commercial activities more efficiently than the public sector, especially in a competitive industry. The benefits of privatization include lower prices, better quality of goods and services produced, wider choices for consumers, more innovation, minimal red tape in decision-making, and less corruption. To safeguard these benefits of privatization, the government has a social obligation to maintain a fair business environment through appropriate regulations and policies. Already, Kenya has developed a fairly robust regulatory environment with the Competitive Authority of Kenya overseeing all sectors of the economy, supported by sector-specific regulators such as the Communications Authority of Kenya. Now, I want to give just a quick overview of the key successes of privatization, just mentioning 3. Over the period that Kenya has undertaken privatization of government-owned enterprises, notable successes include A. KenGen. KenGen was privatized through listing in the Nairobi Securities Exchange in the year 2006 through an IPO that raised 7.8 billion Kenya shillings. Subsequently, the company raised additional 54 billion Kenya shillings from the capital markets through listing of additional shares and issuance of a Kenya shillings 25 billion infrastructure bond. The company has benefited immensely by having Kenyan as a listed company. The country has benefited immensely by having Kenyan as a listed company. The ability to raise funds from the capital markets has helped the company fund major electricity generation projects, especially from renewable sources, enabling the country to produce most of its electricity from green sources. From the efficiencies built through infusion of private sector practices, Kenyan has been able to stabilize electricity supply in Kenya by increasing installed capacity from 945 megawatts in 2006 to 1,904 megawatts in 2023, mostly from renewable sources and most of the financing coming from the capital markets. KCB Group was among the first owned enterprises to be privatized by the government of Kenya through issuance of shares through the stock exchange in 1988. 35 years later, the bank now operates in 7 countries, 598 branches opened, 33 million customers, and over 12,000 employees. The entire growth of the bank was financed internally and largely from raising funds in the capital markets. The privatization of KCB remains one of the key success stories in Kenya's investment optimization decisions since independence. And lastly is Safaricom PLC. The government of Kenya established Safaricom in 1997 as a fully owned subsidiary of Telecom Kenya. The private sector was then invited to take a stake in the company through a 40% acquisition by Vodafone Group PLC in May 2000. And a public offering of 25% shares through the Nairobi Securities Exchange in 2008. So privatization of Safaricom has led to the company's growth to becoming a leading communication company in Africa with over 42 million customers connected to its network and supporting over 1.2 million jobs both directly and indirectly, while its total economic value is estimated at Kenya shillings 400 billion or $3.2 billion US dollars based on its 2024 audited financials. The company is one of the most premium stocks at the Nairobi Securities Exchange with annual revenues of close to Kenya shillings 371 billion or 2.8 Kenya shillings 371 billion or 2.8 billion US dollars as at March 2025. In closing, Your Excellency, as a ministry, we remain fully committed to supporting the growth and deepening of capital markets. We are keen to collaborate with all stakeholders in fostering an enabling environment that attracts investment, enables liquidity, and promotes financial inclusion across the country. Asanteni. Now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me at this juncture and put your hands together as we welcome His Excellency the President to come to the stage and address us and ring the bell. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Waziri. Please, and let's take our seats. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's quite cold here. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we gather here again at the heart of our financial markets, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, to bring the bell in celebration of yet another historic milestone. At the beginning of this administration nearly 3 years ago, I made a clear and firm commitment that we would build our nation by mobilizing local resources, encouraging a culture of savings, and channeling those savings into productive investments. The successful origination, structuring, and listing of the Lindsay 003 infrastructure asset-backed security, the first of its kind in Kenya, raising over 44 billion, is a landmark achievement by any measure.